Welcome back, Real Tech Talk, episode number 54. I brought my boy Ofek coming in from Miami, Florida, and it's Brick in NYC. He is attacking the construction industry from the AI, Gen AI perspective. Do you think what he's going to do is actually going to have a massive impact or not? Sit down, take a look how Gen AI is coming in and attacking construction hard and fast. Is this the solution that anyone is looking for? Come on in, sit down, pay attention. We got a half hour for you. That's why we're here, bro. This is Real Tech Talk. Boom shakalaka. So who the hell are you, bro? You know, what are you into? What do you do? Dude, you can keep it real here. Tell me about these real estate traders.
Eric Brody is the managing principal of CEMVC LLC. All opinions expressed by Eric and podcast guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinion of CEMVC LLC. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions. Clients of CEMVC LLC may maintain positions in the securities discussed in this podcast.
Welcome back, peeps. It's episode number 54. 54. Damn, that's a lot of Real Tech Talks. Today, I brought in my man from way down south from Miami, Ofek, and he's going to talk about the change that's occurring in construction technology, but there's a reason why. As you're seeing it today, there isn't enough product being built. We need to save millimeters and milliseconds of time and money. Now, the question is construction and AI and what Ofek's creating that solution? Well, pay attention, sit down, and let's get started. My man, Ofek, thank you for coming from sunny Miami to the brick shit house of New York City.
No problem. It's funny. Everyone comes to
Miami.
Miami.
Do a boom mic. Go speak right into it. Yeah.
Everyone comes to Miami at this point, and they go to New York in the summer.
That's right. But we drove you here. You needed to get off of Miami where it's beautiful out. Get your ass up here to NYC. And I'm the one wearing the short sleeves. The audience should know it's like 20 degrees out.
I'm freezing my butts off.
All right, so let's get right into it. All right, so because what we found is, and then we'll get into you in a little bit. What we found is, give me one sentence, okay, as to what ReThink is doing, and that is your new entity. So tell me about it.
ReThink automates tasks that someone that runs a construction project needs to do using digital workers or AI agents.
Okay, so let's break that down because most people won't even understand. So imagine each and every day in a construction site, you have all of this disparate data or a common denominators that are completely different. What are some of the file types, let's even just break it down to, that people in the construction sector deal with?
Let me give you a little bit about my background.
All right, let's go.
This is where it all started. I started working in construction when I was 19. Working construction, I use that with an apostrophe because we had 5 or 6 projects we ended up doing at the same time, and I used to drive to the job site, sit in the job site trailer, and just fire up my laptop and do emails and administrative work all day.
Where was it?
That was in San Diego. We did a 36-story high-rise in downtown San Diego. We went on to do a data center. We did a big military headquarters building. We did a sports training facility. We did a library. Got to do a lot of cool projects in a very short period of time.
Isn't there child labor laws against being 19 and doing all that work?
I think you get past it when you're 18.
All right. You were safe. Just making sure.
I was making intern money, but I was working as a project engineer with a project manager, and I thought, I got a job in construction, so I thought I was going to be on site. I thought I was going to be with a team. I thought I was going to actually, maybe not actually, build, but at least be with a team that's building. And I quickly learned that construction is not really about production and building. It's a lot. So much of it is administration.
What we call general contracting, right? And everyone's like, what do you mean? You're like, contract. So contract law. What's contract law? It's all admin. How are you backing up the statements, the flow of documentation, just so you can back up and prove a thesis if you go to court?
Right. And
what percent would you say is administration then?
100% for a general contractor?
Yeah, for GCing.
General contractor used to self-perform some work.
Right.
For the most part, the bigger GCs, they might self-perform some things, but it's mostly contracted out.
Or supervision and labor, I used to say.
Yeah.
Right? So I used to say 50-50, but you're saying it's much more admin.
It's pretty much all admin. You're a broker of relationships, and you're a broker of different contractual requirements that have to happen.
Let's break that down. GC has one agreement, let's say, with an owner, and then every subcontractor performing that work, which could be a labor subcontractor, could be with the garbage pickup, all the way down. Safety, plumbing, electrical, HVAC, superstructure, foundation, SOE is all a separate contract.
All separate contract, and I work for a trade contractor, and even us, we try to push responsibility to our subcontractor. So everyone's trying to shed risk.
What do we call that? A subcontractor.
Sub. We had
sub.
We had so many. And I think it goes into the overall thesis. It's a very interesting book by Todd Zabel called Built to Fail. I highly recommend to read it. It basically dives into construction and what happened. I think it was 1960s. We introduced project management into the world, which not just construction, but every industry got this idea of let's kind of separate the planning from the doing. Let's have people that are going to create these arbitrary dates and deadlines called a schedule, and they'll enforce that it actually happens. And in construction, what happened is we took the keys away from the foremen, the guys who actually build the work, to make decisions about what happens on site and how construction is done.
So true, by the way, right? You're literally separating and bifurcating the guys that do the work, the people that do the work, from the administration, right?
Right.
And their ability to communicate is coming with like a meeting, right? A sub meeting or a construction meeting, nothing to do with like each day knowing what's going on in the field. It's literally a separate, like, and you do these like hierarchies on a construction site, and it's like, yeah, there's a guy in the field, a guy in the office, and then the tentacles move out from there.
Yeah. And I don't know, to your
I like
point,
Barry LaPartner's Broken Buildings, Busted Budgets, who talks about that too.
I haven't read it,
Yeah,
but I'll
it's
make sure
another
I
one,
do.
but go on, yeah.
Well, and I used to work on site, but I used to be in the Jobsite trailer. I mean, it's my fault, but I would spend days not even going on site because I had so much computer work I had to do. And that just shows you just how divided that is. The book talks about we took the keys away from the foreman, we gave it to planners, to lawyers, to these glorified, kind of like how we said, administrators of relationships and contracts.
Cognitive labor, we like to call it. Cognitive labor.
Exactly. So I think going back to your original question, a lot of the work that needs to happen, a lot of the work that we do on the project manager, I was a project engineer, so on that side of construction, is to free up the field to not have roadblocks for them to build properly. So an example,
right, which we're talking about. So if you install a piece of material, is it qualified? Is that credible? So you're not going back and reworking material, right? So they can do their job, which is actually executing the work, the sweat, the things that you're required to get it done. But there's all these things that people don't realize is that in the right place? Is it at the right time, right? Because they have all these risks on their contract.
Right, and they're making sure that the risk is pushed to someone else. Now, there are higher order issues, which is how construction contracts are set up today, which, I'm in Miami. The developers are still very big on design, bid, build. It's a classic. You hire a designer, you get the drawings, you get the requirements, and you give it to the contractor, and then you have this change order game. Everyone's faxing basically information between the construction team and the design team. There is a push today, which I'm sure you've seen on projects, design build, where you get the contractor involved early. There is progressive design build, which has gotten, I think, more traction where we are, which is let's do that, but let's still kind of separate in two different contracts. There's also radical project delivery methods called integrated project delivery, where basically everyone is equal and you truly have everyone work together since day one. When I say everyone, I mean the engineers, the architects, and the contractors, not just the general contractor.
Right, but these are different. We're not that we're skipping around. It's true. There's contracts that are trying to define that, which must be a shit show. Then there's philosophies on the job site trying to define that, right? Like to actually be collaborative, which would mean you can actually make a mistake, and now I'm not going to shove all this risk down your throat and all this cost down your throat, right? Which these theoretically sound amazing, but I'm not sure they solve anything.
They don't, and I think it really boils down to, we spend a lot of time as a company studying all the theories of lean construction and studying, lean as a whole has really changed manufacturing world, and it's not a new thing. It's been brought into construction for a long time.
But tell them, what's the definition of lean?
Yeah, it depends who you ask.
But let's just do like a simple one. It's like,
to me, it's remove waste at all costs.
Correct.
Right? And with construction, you
it's
have
like
to
first order principles from Elon Musk. It's like, if the painter needs to paint, bring the paint with the painter to the location of the paint, right? Yeah. At that time, instead of it's there for 3 weeks in the way of the carpenters and the other guys, even though in 3 weeks you'll need to be there, right? It's like simple, stupid shit like that you would say is common sense, but once you get into this massive complexity of construction, it really goes out the window.
It does. And there's even simpler examples like, look at your routine in the morning. You make coffee and you are pouring hot water and you have your instant coffee, but then you're going to the other side of the kitchen to grab the sugar, and then you're going to somewhere else to grab the milk. It's actually very easy. You have to just basically think about all the waste that you have in your day and try to eliminate it. That's lean. In the context of construction is you have to look at what's value-adding time in construction and what's non-value-adding time. Value-adding time is, of course, it's the field, or in the future it's going to be robots, which we already have some today that are doing a lot of the work. Coordination is value-adding time in most cases, and there's other things that are. But non-value-adding time is, I think, something that a lot of companies are trying to look at. But I think with I guess to tie this into construction tech, and there's like another guy that I respect a lot named KP Reddy, and he talks about this where
Shadow Ventures,
Yeah,
shout
Shadow
out K
Ventures.
Pizzle.
Yeah, we just had a call a couple weeks ago, and he talks about he was saying that a lot of software companies are trying to help you write an RFI faster or better, right? But more software companies are trying to eliminate the RFI altogether. What was the point of this RFI happening if we could have caught it in design earlier? So to tie that into, I guess, our company, and I'm happy to dive deeper into it, is that we want construction to go back into a world where we're focused on production versus having 9 sweaty guys sit in the job site trailer push emails. I don't think that's value adding time. You need it. But
No, we know without a shadow of a doubt, right, that we are bogged down with administration. You're hiring tons and tons of staff that are high cognitive labor at high cost, right? That not that they can be replaced, but that it was required. That was the paradigm,
Yep.
right? And if I'm not mistaken, your idea, which I had on this podcast, a friend of mine, Vekram, about it, is how do you mitigate cognitive labor? And then you said in the beginning, agents, right? Like low-level agents, and it's not just construction, and I'm not saying the complexity will increase, are being replaced by agents. So get into what is the thesis then of ReThink.
Yeah, so
you've identified this problem. It sucks.
identify
We
the
agree.
problem. A significant amount of time in construction is spent on low value adding administrative work. That is a problem that we solve. Now, before I get to the solution, I guess let me talk about alternative solution, which many companies and many industries are doing, which I think we discussed before, is building chatbots. People are building chatbots for lawyers to chat with your legal documents. People are building chatbots for doctors to chat with whatever medical records. People are building chatbots for construction. I don't think they're bad. We also built a chatbot. We use complicated RAG and knowledge graphs to be able to get pretty good answers when you ask a question. We do demos on site with contractors in Miami, and Atlanta, and all over the place. We quickly learned that people, despite having, even if the chatbot was really, really good, they didn't know what to search, right? So if you don't know what to search your chatbot, then the actual result you're going
So the limiting factor is the human, not knowing how to phrase the prompt for the chatbot to work.
Yeah.
What about the data that the chatbot is using?
So that is a very important factor where you first have to figure out, well, where's the construction project's data stored, right? No one today, I'm sure you know Procore, no one's beating Procore today in project management for construction. No one is beating SharePoint for cloud storage, right? Most construction companies, at least that we work with, Procore, SharePoint, no one's beating Outlook. Construction is universally on there. Those are the 3 massive sources of data.
So Outlook, email, SharePoint, you're saying is a cloud-based file storage like Dropbox or Box, but SharePoint is the one winning for construction.
Every contractor, they'll have, Procore would love for all the project data to sit in Procore, but what we found is that they'll have obviously lots of files in Procore, but they'll have a project folder that they use for their company, which has a lot of rich data. The biggest source of data.
Wait, let's go to the last one. Then there's Procore, which is the exchange of those documents, the last RFI, the last drawing, the last submittal. So that's sitting there.
Yes.
So what would be a file that is not in Procore would be in SharePoint?
I don't see the schedule being uploaded to Procore.
Schedule, GC agreements, all your sub agreements, right? So like people need to understand. So the transitional documents, they'll be on Procore, right? Like
Your drawings,
RFI,
your specs.
submittals, drawings, specs. Then the agreements in the admin that we're talking about, contracts, delay letters, anything that's correspondent that's outside of Procore. And then the last one we said was email, which is another exchange of documents on Outlook, right? So people don't get it. There's still these 3 massive spaces for information.
Yeah, I would say email is the biggest one because I used to get 150-ish emails a day, and I would respond to many of them. So there's massive amounts of important data in there.
And if we look at emails, it's verbiage, right? The actual email.
Right.
It's the attachment, which is in multiple different forms, right? So there's all these different data types in all these 3 different sectors.
Yep.
Which means they can't be read by, right? You're looking, you're searching. That's the human. That's cognitive labor, looking for this shit, looking for the last thing, looking to put together all of that data to give an answer to somebody.
Yep. Yeah, and today, we know your biggest competition is Control F, which is what people are doing. I will add 2 more sources, which is there's also code and compliance. So when you're contractually required to install a project, you need to make sure it's compliant with whatever the project's
building code zoning resolution.
ADA
so that's
zoning.
over. ADA, DEP, DEC. All right. So that's a 4th bucket that everything is also having to work in the 5th.
Yep. The 5th is if there's a BIM model, then you have to make sure there's so much rich data in the BIM model that you can then use for other things. When you're working with PDF drawings, you're working with static vectors and lines. When you're working with a BIM model, you actually know that this is a toilet and this is a door frame and this is whatever it might be. And you can use that data because you also know the geometry of it and where it is. So those are the
there's
4.
5 different buckets of data that we have this massive administrative staff. You've got BIM modelers, you've got Procore administrators. I guess SharePoint everyone has to use, right? And then email everyone has to use. And then the code is a different set of parties that might not even be on your team, or the architect or the RA or the PEs, and everyone with the stamp is responsible for that.
Exactly.
And now you know why we have all this administration.
Exactly. And there's many other platforms they use, but this is where the data that we find in all of the conversations we've had is stored.
Okay, cool.
Now the question is, to answer your previous thought, is you can take that unstructured, call it 2 terabytes of project data, which is roughly what we see for like a medium-sized project. There's many different things technically you can do with it, but you can make it usable and you can put it into a chatbot. But again, if someone doesn't know what to put in, then what they're going to get out is not that great. And I think as a whole with AI, we're moving away from chatbots now a little bit and more towards a very focused approach of how we apply the AI to what someone's doing. Our hypothesis is what I described, and is instead of a chatbot, it's a task-based approach to using AI. So let me figure out what you have to do every single day, and then let me use the messy project's data to use an AI agent to maybe complete the entire task for you, or let me complete part of it and stop somewhere, get the human to be in the loop, and then to continue. And I think that's the future of how people are going to work with AI. I don't know if you see it, but even...
Well, the first question, though, is have you solved for the common denominator? What do you call it? I call it disparate data. You call it unstructured data.
Unstructured data.
Can you now create all 5 of those buckets? Have you been able to into structured data that is easily recallable?
Yes, but even if that's the case, it's so what? Right? Even if that's the case, what are you actually going to do? Let's say you organize this
No,
data.
that's just step 1. So now
That's
you're
step
saying
1.
here's structured data. You've now taken all of these different things and now stated, okay, we can use it.
Right.
It's now easily information for you. So that just saved hundreds of hours of time. Just in general, I'm just saying, you can at least ask. Then you're stating, okay, but that's step 1. That's like AI 2023. Right? And we're at 2025 now. So now you're stating that it should then be able to actually prompt you on what you're responsible for that day.
Yeah. And there are 2 different ways that we extract tasks. I'll talk about what we do today, which is what we found is most common, is someone like myself, and I used to be, or project engineers, project managers, they go to their Jobsite trailer, they open their laptop, and the first thing they do is look at their emails. Right? I mentioned I get 150 emails a day. I talk to people that get 200 plus. And your email is a huge source of tasks that come in. Those are very reactive, right? Because you get an email, you have to, some of them are easy, some of them you have to look up information, some of them you have to create something and respond. There's also proactive tasks that we're working on also, which is, why don't we look at the schedule? I'll give you an example. We know a chiller has to be installed in 9 months. For the chiller to be installed in 9 months, it has to be ordered. For the chiller to be ordered, the submittals need to be approved. For the submittals to be approved, you have to get the submittals, right? And you can keep working yourself backwards, and there's maybe 25 tasks that have to work in a series for that chiller to actually be properly installed by the field, or in the future by robots, I really think. So what we do today is the first one, which is the reactive task. So tasks come in from your email. Some tasks are very easy, but lots of tasks require you to go use the project's messy data to either just respond to it or make a document, make a report, make some sort of action and respond. And that is what we target today to be able to ultimately save time.
Well, let's think about it differently for the human.
Sure.
People will be like, yeah, so it's 25 tasks. Someone can know that, right? Like someone can understand that and then be able to follow that and we can use it. And you're like, yeah, how about for everything on the job? has the tasks that we call the critical path, or there's lag in the critical path, or these tasks that have to be done today impact tomorrow in order for you to hit it. The human brain is not complex enough to understand all of these complicated tasks coming today to what needs to be done today in order for you to achieve the goal tomorrow.
Right.
I don't care how smart you are or how many tasks you can have in your mind, you can't do it. And with taking this data, putting it together, looking at your schedule, understanding where you need to be in 9 months, we can tell you what to do today.
Yep.
Right? And every scheduler tries to do that. But if you ever see a real schedule, it's 1,500 items. And even to read the schedule in order to come up with what needs to be done that day will take you a day. So it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So here it could be like, this is what you have to do today. And you're wondering why? Don't wonder anymore. I guarantee you it's on a path to executing when you need it to be. So you don't have to think anymore.
Yeah, and that's where you have to add the x-axis, which you have to factor in for every task. How does it pertain to the schedule? I think that's very important. And I think that just the scenario that we can talk about now is just during this call, we might get when I used to work construction, I used to go to a half-hour meeting and I would have 50 emails when I got back. It was crazy. So the process today is that you get those emails and you have to go through them and figure out, like you said, okay, well, which one do I have to respond to now because the schedule and this and that. Our approach, and we realize that someone in a Jobsite trailer, they might have 1 or 2 monitors. There's only so much real estate, right? So they're already using Outlook. They're already using Procore. They're already using
Well, you just said
SharePoint.
there's 5 things that need to be up right off the
there's
bat.
5
And
things.
forget about actually looking at a drawing. We just said these 5 places need to kind of be up in tabs.
Yeah, that's in some way, shape, or form. So no one, like I said earlier, no one's replacing any of them, right? But as we sat in this meeting, we got back to the trailer. Instead of me trying to go filter through these 50 emails, I can look at, well, we extracted maybe out of the 50 emails, only 20 of them require you to actually do something. I extracted 20 tasks for you to do. And for every task, I broke it up into steps that the computer, the agent, is going to execute. And maybe out of those 20, 15 of the tasks I just already completed for you. You just have to click send. 5 of them require additional information that we don't have. Maybe one of a task is, send the subcontractor pricing from the vendor, whatever it might be. You don't actually have that pricing. So you have to go do that as a human, at least today. But that is what we see the future of construction being.
But you just said, so some of them could be responded to, right? Yeah. Like if someone's like, I'm looking for the latest drawing, like you don't have to find it. The agent can do it. But let's go back to something you said, which is there's only an amount of screen, right? There's only a certain amount of screen. It reminds me of very Player One, like Orwellian. Did you ever see that movie, Player One? Ready Player One? It was a Spielberg movie where they were trying to sell like spaces on like your Oculus in playing a game of the future, and like you get money if you like sold space. So first, like it makes sense, right? You can't have all of this tabs and things open, right? Yeah. And if you did each one of these tabs that we're stating, you have to learn a new program, right? It's not like each tab, if it's Procore, I mean, maybe it's relatively makes a lot of sense and it's easy to use, but you have to learn it, right? And construction, not to diss us, but we were a bunch of Neanderthals. We don't want to continue to learn. We already have enough tasks. We already said there could be, to get the HVAC machine, 35 tasks that need to be done now in order to achieve that goal. Like adding something else, like we're not prepared for it. We don't want to do it, right?
Yeah.
So each time one of these tabs, we're learning SharePoint. You're like learning Procore. You're learning Excel. You're learning Outlook. There's all these things. And everyone's shoving all this construction tech at us. And we don't know what to actually go forward. Right? So how are you going to resolve that so people are actually using what you're providing?
Well, first, I think all these contractors, they're not going to move away from these software providers. So you have to build on top of them. You have to be able to read and write from their data. And all these companies, Procore is very friendly to companies that will build with them because it inherently gives a better Procore experience as well. If we're extracting a task out of an RFI, then we write the RFI and we push it back to Procore, then you have your Procore experience be better. So it's not a bad thing. I don't want to, some companies, most software companies, to be honest with you, when you get subscribed, you have to do a demo and you have to learn how to use the software. And it could take, even for me, like some software, it takes me weeks to like truly understand how to use.
Agreed.
What we try to do.
And you're a software engineer, so imagine.
Yeah.
You're like, and you don't want to do it.
Of course I don't. And sometimes if I, just random stuff, like I was just trying to find something to help us with like sending emails and stuff for leads, but I opened 3 of them and I didn't like any of them because it took me too long to learn. I think people have very short attention span in any industry and in construction. I think people are very surprised when they ask us for a demo and my demo takes about 2 minutes because I don't think it should take any longer than that. Of course, there's millions of scenarios you can look at, but just seeing, okay, here's a task, you click the button, here we walk through the steps and we executed the task for you. That's the demo right there. And we think that to be successful today, to have maximum adoption is you have to, as I said, you have to build on top of these tools, and you have to give someone a very seamless experience using it, and not something that we're going to have to learn, they're going to have to learn again.
Which I just, so you know, like, I don't think, the audience, just to understand like what we're stating, it's like, if you had to even open another tab, let's just talk about AI in general, ChatGPT and the rest of it. It's like, who's going to win that game? Whoever looks at what your normal processes are, and let's say it's not Outlook, it's Gmail, and immediately it's there and it's working, right?
Yep.
The prompts, the this, the that, like it makes perfect sense. Like that, it's that easy that, oh, you want to learn chat? I don't want to learn it. You're like, there's nothing to learn. It's there. Like it's over, it's done, right?
Yep.
And those that provide that type of technology, meaning it's just so seamless, you're not learning anything new, right? You're telling the construction industry you're not learning anything new. Hit this button, I picked up your data already. What do you mean? How do you, you're like, you didn't have to do anything. We've already tied into all of your data. And see that thing right there? Click it, right? It's not a new tab. It's literally on your Outlook and you can use it,
Yep.
right?
Task
Wasn't
is
that
already done.
was what you showed me. Like it's not, I'm not doing anything. So the audience needs to understand the ability to be on your program is instantaneous, right? Within 2 minutes. And then the question, people are like, well, I don't like it. You're like, cool, hit that button. It's gone, right? Like you didn't download the thing, upload the file, change the way you're operating. It's like, I paid for it. I didn't pay for it. I paid for it. It's gone, right? And that's what people don't realize. Remember back in the day, it's like, oh, but the file is there and now I have to change it. So now I'm sucked into this software and I don't want to use it anymore. You're like, yeah, we get it. You use it, great, pay. Don't use it, don't pay. Goodbye, right? And I think that to me is like a future of like so much technology that people don't understand. If you have to open a tab, you're probably not going to use it.
100%. And I think the biggest competitor to any AI software company today is ChatGPT, right? Our users are younger, typically, not always, but younger project managers, project engineers, guys that are a little bit more open to technology. And their farthest they've gone in the journey in AI is they got really good at dragging and dropping PDFs into ChatGPT, coming up with a good prompt saying, hey, write this email for me about this drawing. And then it gets them a pretty good result. And you have to make sure you give your customer a better experience than that, because that experience is pretty darn good nowadays, to be honest with you.
It's amazing.
Right? And it works, and it's only getting better. I tell people the scariest part about all this technology is today is the worst it's going to be, right? So you have to make sure that whatever you build gives you a better experience than that. An example, like Claude released recently now, their computer use model, which literally moves your mouse and types for you. And again, this is the worst the computer is going to be. It's only going to improve. So if you can give someone an experience, well, hey, I took this task out of this email, then I actually went through and I applied this model to using your files and then coming up with the information and getting a response. This is a better experience than having to do it yourself in Claude, because it's only open through the API, so it's only for software companies. That is, I think, how we show value to someone in construction.
How funny is that though? Like 6 months ago, it's like, just use ChatGPT. Now they're using it, and now you have to contend with that you need to do a better experience than which I don't think people realize, than this just general LLM.
Yep.
Like, and now you have to create an even better experience. But I assume you can. Like, for instance, we were talking about BIM, right? To get that data in BIM, to be able to give it to create universal information from it so that you can respond. That isn't something that ChatGPT is doing, right? No. Like, so you had to get a API with any type of BIM software as well. So like, that's also like, they're not doing that yet. I mean, they could, and there'd be a plugin. It's called the BIM plugin. And that'll be like.
And to be honest with you, I wouldn't be surprised if 3 months from now we see that.
Right.
It's already gotten pretty darn good at PDFs. Right, you can already upload PDFs, type something, and get a pretty good response.
PDFs, Excel, Word, it can create formats for you. It's not as good downloading back to the format you need.
Right.
Like, but we're talking about like months, 2 months, 3 months, right?
It's only going to get better, but regardless, it's always going to be detached from your workflow.
That's right. That is what I'm saying is a secret sauce and a moat for you. Right? Yeah. Like, yes, you can learn all these prompts, upload this data. Where does it get stored? Like for you, you're like, we've taken all 5 of your file types, all different ways of that information, stored it here, using it to respond for you, and it's right where you already operate. Don't go anywhere else but your screen.
Yeah. And I think I guess to talk about mode a little bit, I think what gets a lot of our investors excited, and you know, maybe customers as well, is that to execute a project, a construction project, there's millions of different variations of tasks that need to happen. And what we're doing is for every task that gets completed, we're learning where are you actually looking to find the information. This task comes in, are you looking at an RFR, are you looking in the submittal, are you looking in the contract, in the schedule, whatever it might be.
Right. What's the lead agency or the lead document for that task?
Which one is it? And then that's one. Two, this is the kind of the three ways we train it. So one is, like you said, where's the document? Where are you looking for? Maybe it's multiple places. Are you looking at old emails?
Right. And does the code, go above, like, and then you have to look at the contract, like what's first, the hierarchy is like, is it the code first and then follow the code and then everything that you're stating? Is it really design first, right? You have to teach it that.
Right. It really just, it depends on the task and depends on the context of the task. So there's that. And then two is how you actually search the information. So you might have you might have construction drawings that have just tons of messy data in it. Where are you actually looking to find this? Are you looking at this little, schematic inside the floor plan of level 2 or whatever it might be? So we learn, okay, where are they looking for, or what documents they're searching for, where they're looking in the documents, and what's the actual output? Are you writing an email response? What does the email need to have? Are you just writing maybe just like a report, which then you can download as a PDF? Are you creating an Excel spreadsheet? It could be millions of different things.
Well, it's fascinating. You're translating the mind as to uploading and finding the data, how they would then locate the data, then downloading it back to the format of the universal language of construction.
Yep.
Right? So that it's a full process of figuring it out. It's not, a half a process or sort of getting there or not. That's fascinating. I mean, so tell me, just because, I could talk about this for hours, and we don't have hours because our viewers as we stated, can barely, learn a new program, let alone anything else.
5 minutes of it.
Where do you stand as a company, and where are you operating, and what's going on in sort of 2025 as you look forward?
Yeah, so this was born out of a job site 2 years ago. We built something before, LLMs existed, but no one knew about them back then. We built something initially that helped connect the projects like data, like files in Procore and emails to the BIM model. So I was able to click on like something in the BIM model and I would see, oh, this is the submittal for it. And it saved me time on that project. But that was just kind of the initial thing. That the two guys I worked with then actually became my co-founders. We started about, I think, a little more than 6 months ago now, working full-time on the company. We're based in Miami. We wanted to be, people say you want to start a startup, go to SF, go to New York. I do think if you're in construction, then tremendous opportunity in Miami because there's a growing startup.
Well, go where they're building is what your thesis was, right? Not where the tech is. I'll take those humans, but I need to go where people are building to really get this, get this onto jobs.
From our office, I have 7 cranes that I counted just from the window that we're in that you can go to. Every single one of those should be a customer, right? You're in SF, you can't just go walk to your customers as much as you can in like South Florida. So that's why we're down there. We've had good progress working with some mid-size. I think that really our sweet spot is mid-size general contractors.
I think it's smart.
Ones that they're not so advanced where they have this venture arm and they have, I'm sure you have, the Suffolk Construction, some of the big guys. They're not there yet, but they definitely want to be ahead of the game. They want to use AI. The farthest they've gone at the journey, as I said, is ChatGPT.
By the way, I also got to tell you, that's like a super advanced person, by the way. Like, I know that you're speaking with people who know ChatGPT and using it for construction.
Yeah.
I'd say that's still like 3%. Like, we're like the slowest absorbing this stuff, So, and you're worried about how ChatGPT is going to outdo you. I'm like, okay, It's still, you're way advanced.
Well, it's funny you say that. There's such a big divide, I think, between what the tech community thinks of the world and what the real person community, what the Silicon Valley world thinks and what the regular human that walks around in New York thinks of technology. I do think it leans a little bit more on the side of the Silicon Valley in terms of how powerful AI is going to be, but it's not nearly as adopted as people think. And I think it's going to take more and more time to get there.
But I agree with you in the mid-market space. I think that's fascinating. Even this podcast, the whole discussion was, we know that the head of the comment is experimenting with everything and creating venture arms to stay abreast of the situation. Who's talking to the middle market? So it's great that you're like, yeah, we'll do the middle market. The upper echelons, they're being attacked by everyone to do it. Like, if you own the middle market, they'll never see you coming.
I think so too. I think the middle market with them, even larger trade, everyone avoids the trade contractors, the guys who actually build. That's who I was with. So we work with companies like that as well. And I think something interesting that we're exploring now, which I think is going to be a strategy long term, is there's a big debate in construction tech about how you price, because every project every client has 100% churn. Every project ends at some point. So you can't just do a SaaS model at least per project, because that's going to end. You could try to do a SaaS model for the company, or some companies like Procore have gone, they have line items and they have big enterprise agreements with contractors, but it's really hard to break in because you don't always know who's actually going to pay for you. And maybe this one project manager likes you, but when his project ends and he doesn't know his next project, then you lost the customer. So I think
so let's just go back. So one model is monthly subscription, but you're like projects end and projects begin. So you're taking a monthly prescription. That's difficult, right? Because then they'll get rid of you. You lose a customer. The other one is per project, right?
Yeah. So you could do monthly per company. That works in some cases, but I don't think you're extracting. As a software company, I don't think you're extracting as much money as you should, because you're providing tremendous value for a specific project. But you could do that per user per month. That's just a standard SaaS model. It's just hard because there's many projects and you have to process lots of data. It's not as straightforward as it is for other entities that you sell to. Like you said, there's per project. So you could say, I'm going to charge you
percent of the project.
Percent of the, not Procore. Procore does it for total company volume, but some companies will say, hey, just percentage, or give me $5,000 a month per project. When your project ends, let's look at your next one. Every project is really its own business entity. So you kind of have to treat it that way. The third model, which is what we want to get to very soon, which is what I think a lot of AI companies are looking at, which is they call it outcome as a service, or token-based pricing, or what we call is task-based pricing. So the biggest, when you try to sell to someone in construction, they want to see the value in it. And if they see the value in it, they're going to pay for it. So why don't you, instead of charging someone an arbitrary number, you charge them, hey, for every task that we successfully complete, that you don't have to have a human have to work on, you pay a certain amount of tokens, you pay a certain amount of money for that task. And I think a lot of AI companies in every industry is going to push towards that in the future. Today, you're paying a project engineer, call it $7,500 a month to, $90,000, whatever it is, a year to work for you. If we can even charge half of that, but still do the same work, putting aside the fact that it's going to be faster, more accurate, and more complete, then it's pretty easy to justify that in a construction project budget. And that's how you dig into the general conditions, and that's what we're trying to get into.
Well, that's fascinating. So tell everyone where they can find you.
So our website, rethinkplans.com. Like I said, we work with any contractors. Would love to talk, but really our sweet spot is mid-sized GCs, large trade contractors. We'd love to see if there's an opportunity to help you with your task and maybe help your team be more lean and more efficient.
Listen, I really appreciate you flying 1,100 miles to come see us today, because as you know, we're only live. No one can dial in, so I appreciate it.
I love this. This is so much better than a Zoom.
Well,
podcast.
that's what we're thinking is like long format, not that long because we're not that long, but like still in person with nonverbal communication cues. Like it's going to be AI agents anyway. This will be the last bastion.
We'll see.
Of humans.
I think it's funny that we the engineers, we said go get into coding, and the engineers are going to replace first. The artists, the people that do stuff like this, are the ones that people are still going to want to watch.
I know, it's so funny. It's like I get these younger people trying to work for me, and I'm like, cool, AI? No. Do you do content creation? No. I'm like, what are you doing out there? Do you not see where the change is coming? They're like, well, we want it. And you're like, all right, I get it. But like, these are the things that we're all looking for.
Right.
So listen, I really appreciate you coming through, brother.
Thank you.
All right, we'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon.
Peace. Guys, this was it. Do I know if he's the one who solves this problem? Maybe. What he said, there's 5 different places of data right now in construction. You got admins working on it. You never can get that answer. Ask any project manager, engineer, how long he's taking just to understand data and information in order to give it to the field to execute. He's taking all 5 of those, creating a common denominator, plugging it right into your email, and giving you the solution that fast. To me, that is a medicine. Because think about it. I don't need you to learn another program. That's a wrap. I don't need you to log out and do something else. Plug it in, try it, pay the money if you like it. I don't like it, peace. That to me is the way in which to go. If he owns that marketplace, then all of a sudden his company explodes. So pay attention to what ReThink is doing. Are they the ones to solve the Gen AI? Peace.